All right, so today we are talking about moving into the modern and what that means. And we are talking about I.A. Richards. Am I correct? That's what's on the agenda? Okay, good. I was in a class just previous, and there are like 14 of them in there. And I knew what was on the syllabus for the day. And you want to know how many of them did? 0. And they're all like, yeah, we didn't look at the syllabus. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They didn't even know what the topic was today. All right, but you guys are a little more on the ball. I appreciate that. So, what do we mean by moving into the modern? What do I mean when I say that? Well, as you know, we got through the classical Greek period, well, the classical period generally, Greek and Roman, through the medieval, into the Renaissances. And those Renaissances lead into what we call the modern period, not because it's modern in the sense that it's contemporary, it's certainly not, but modern in the sense of the philosophies that were behind the study of rhetoric at the time. Now, there's a couple of things that start to happen in the Renaissances that we know of. We know that there is now a relationship between rhetoric and reason or science and the aesthetic or the artistic. And those three things, that triangle of relationship, is going to, in a lot of ways, continue until we come to grips with the fact that the art of rhetoric, the aesthetic of it, and reasoning are what make up rhetoric. And that's sort of where we're getting to now. In the modern period, we see a return back to the idea that rhetoric is inherently linked to reason and science, vis-a-vis evidence. So Aristotle's thoughts on logos, the idea that you have to have some external support through artificial and inartificial proofs. The idea that you would go and perform science experiments or read other books or journal articles and then bring them in to make your argument more persuasive is kind of what rhetoric is. This is born out of a few things. Hey there. This is born out of a few things that happened during the late Renaissance into the early modern period. And that was the introduction of humanism. Now you know this. As we came out of the medieval period where religion ruled everything, how did we get out of that? How did we break away from the church telling us what the truth was, from the church determining what the role of rhetoric was, and so on? And that was, at the beginning of the Renaissances, the reawakening of the idea that humans contribute to understanding the world too. Now, that sounds radical, I know. The idea that God tells us what the truth is, or the church tells us what the truth is, versus humans, bless you, being able to share the truth. Humanists they were not necessarily atheists. Okay, I don't want you to get the wrong idea, because a lot of people say, oh, a humanist, you don't believe that God has anything to do with that. No, that's not it. Not all humanists. Some humanists, sure. Some humanists were flat out nihilistic. We've got nothing to do with anything in this world beyond us living in it for a short period of time. That's a dark place to go. Don't go there. Instead, think about it this way. No matter what you believe in a higher power, whether that's just that the universe has created something through the Big Bang, and we all just evolved, and here we are, and that there's no meaning in life, whether you're there or whether you're, look, I'm a practicing Buddhist. I believe in a higher power than me. Actually, Buddhists don't believe in a higher power. They believe in the cycle of nature. But whether you believe that, whether you believe in the Christian storyline of there is a God the Father and Jesus Christ the Son and a Holy Spirit, whatever it is that you believe, that you can also believe that we human beings have the ability to produce and contribute to knowledge and understanding. That's what humanism was. It wasn't a rejection of the church or as for God as an authority, so much as it was just an acceptance that we can say things. And thus, we're able and create knowledge and progress the world. And thus, we come out of the dark ages into the light because humans can start to begin to produce knowledge and ideas again. Publicly. And some of them died for that, just so you know. But, so humanists come along and they start to introduce this idea of reason not just being created in the mind anymore, but as it being a science external to humans that humans can understand and utilize. And that's where we come in with bacon and with eggs. I'm kidding, that was a really bad joke, I'm sorry. With bacon and with Vico and with others who say, okay, we can use science, but we still have to reason from that science. For example, can you go out and do an experiment on some pharmaceutical drugs that are new? Yes. Can you find out whether or not they're effective? Sure. Can you find out if there's, I don't know, some side effects? Absolutely. Great, you've done that, now what? And the answer is, if we don't share that information, then we're not creating knowledge, we're not contributing. In order to share that knowledge and in order to contribute, what do we have to practice? Rhetoric. And at the time, some would call it, and I still call it today, honestly, the rhetoric of science. How is it that we share scientific information? Now, for, I don't know how long, but for a period of time, it used to be thought that science and reason were two separate things. That was short-lived when we realized that science is a formulaic or predictive way of reasoning. So we do this pharmaceutical study, and then we reason from what we learn. And so the rhetoric of science is understanding how that works. Let me give you a real-world, right now, contemporary example. There is a whole narrative out there about AI and about space rockets. There's a whole narrative out there. There's people involved, Bezos and Musk and others, right? And it's science. It's literal rocket science. Here's what I know has happened in the past couple of weeks. 2 astronauts who were supposed to be on the International Space Station, which is not in outer orbits, outer space. It's in inner space, right? It's not even that far out. An International Space Station. And 2 of them who were supposed to be up there for, what was it, a couple days, got stuck there for 9 months. And that Elon Musk's space, was it SpaceX? Is that right? I think that's right. Had a rocket go up to the International Space Station and bring those 2 astronauts back. Okay, I don't know a whole hell of a lot here, but it stands to reason that if we got them 2 weeks ago, why couldn't we get them a month ago? Why couldn't we get them 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, etc.? What happened that made that impossible? And here's something that's going to drive you nuts. We don't know the answer to that question. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of knowing things like that. There's a logic in the question, isn't there? Why couldn't we do it before if we could do it now? And I'm sure there's a great answer for it. Maybe it's super scientific. Maybe it's so super scientific that no one can actually practice the art of rhetoric to tell us what the answer to that question is. But here's what I can tell you. We will probably never know. Why? Because if they don't want to tell us, it's not something we're going to ask about in 3 weeks, possibly 3 days. We've got other crap going on. I don't know if you've noticed, we bombed Yemen. There was a serious security leak. We've got bigger issues than whether or not SpaceX did something scientifically they could have done before but didn't do it. We've got bigger issues, right? But that idea of being able to explain science to the general population is exactly what rhetoric of science looks at. It's no different than Aristotle saying that rhetoricians explain the government to its people. So that idea of reasoning becomes important for sharing progress, knowledge, and interpretation. When I went to high school, I didn't go to a high school. I went to a college preparatory academy. And our classes in physics and chemistry, which I barely passed, by the way, were taught by a guy who worked at NASA, who had a PhD and worked at NASA in Cleveland. Okay? Wow, that's really fascinating. No wonder your parents paid $4,000 a year, which at the time was a lot of money, for you to go to this school. That's awesome. No, it's not, and here's why. God rest Dr. M forever in my heart, Dr. Mahalo. The man could not teach to save his life. Did he have a lot of great knowledge? Yeah, in there. Did he express it properly to students? No, he really didn't. And so one of the reasons why we call this the modern era is because it fits into what we call modern philosophy. Modern philosophy looks at things very pragmatically, very functionally. What does it do? So when this was created, it was created to keep my ice still going 6 hours after I put the ice in here. And as you can hear, still ice. Not as much as there was, but still ice, which means my water is cold, right? It is made in a cylinder form so that it's not too rounded like they used to have. It has a lid on it so I don't spill it, although somehow I still managed to spill it on my power cord today. It does everything it can to be functional. So here's the question. What does the purple and pink and white, what are these swirls for? The aesthetic, for the art, exactly. Now I've got some of these at home that are just plain silver. I've got some that have blue and black and different colors on them. This one has pink and purple swirls for no other reason than to say, apparently I like pink and purple. But the modernist would look at this and say, well, you don't really need those swirls on there. That's just added stuff because the function of this cup only requires that it be cylindrical in nature, that it be big enough to hold enough water, that it be insulated a certain way, have a particular lid on top that can open and close so you can use it. That's it. And we looked at everything like this for the purpose of its function. So what was the function of rhetoric? Was it supposed to be pretty? Was it supposed to be artistic? Well, no. So we invented something known as the lecture. Now, have you guys ever actually seen a full-on lecture? Usually what happens is somebody comes into a room, they have a podium, they stand in one place, they have notes that they basically read to you that gives you the information that you need. History class was like this for me when I was in college. Oh hell, all my classes were like that in college because all we did was lecture. Just give you the information, because the view of communication at the time was functional. I speak, you hear and understand. Period. That's a very functional approach, a very modern, streamlined, clean lines, all the whole deal for the purpose of communication. Now, what we have learned over time is that that's not exactly how communication works. But we were still trying to study rhetoric this way. So, we started coming up with models, we started coming up with processes for how communication functions. And in the beginning, it was speaker, message, audience. That was it. Hearer, listener, whatever. Speaker, message, receiver. That was it. Nowadays, we know it's much more complex. We've got a speaker who encodes a message. That message then gets decoded by someone on the other side who receives it. Now, in between there is an entire world of the rhetorical environment going on that might impact how they hear it or receive it. And in addition to that, there's noise and interference. And then they try to give you feedback to let you know whether they're getting your message or not, which in here, thank God I never count on your feedback. Because if one of you looks up from your computer, I'm like, eye contact. So exciting. Right? But in other instances, the feedback might be that somebody has a question, or that they look like they're not getting it, or that they don't understand. So we've got now a 7 to 9 part communication model, which is much more complex, but it's still a process. It's still pretty clean. It's still functional. So moving into the modern, what we look for are ways of understanding the communication process, or in this case, ways of understanding the practice of rhetoric. And it seems to get incredibly scientific at times. Let's look at the first example that we have of this. The interjection of the human into the reasoning of understanding rhetoric. One of the first people that really gets us into this idea, of course, was some of the people we read last week, or 2 weeks ago, like John Locke and others, who said, here's what the process might look like. Here's some of the barriers that we might see. Today we're going to move a little bit further, and a lot of times people might refer to this guy as the first postmodernist, and I am here to tell you that is inaccurate, and he would reject that too. I.A. Richards, that's who's on our agenda for today, am I correct? Okay. I.A. Richards is most known for a model of communication that is seeking out meaning in a lot of ways. Meaning. However, I.A. Richards was not interested in how we communicate. He was interested in how we mess that up. He was interested in miscommunication. What happens when we don't understand each other? Why does that happen? What does that look like? And so I.A. Richards came up with a theory or a model for communicating. And it's based in the smallest bite of information in communication and in rhetoric, and that is language, the words. So we have a triangle. This is known as the semantic triangle of meaning. Now I'm going to ask a question. If you don't know, tell me you don't know, but is this model in the book? Does anybody know or not know? Don't know, don't know, don't know, don't know. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I didn't check the book either. I guess that says something about me. I'm not sure what, but something. Wow, I really am incapable of drawing a straight line. There we go. All right, so this is known as the semantic triangle of meaning. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Doesn't semantic just mean words? Playing with language? And the answer to that is no. The semantic triangle of meaning is, yes, looking at words broken down and how they create a meaning, or in this case of I. Richards, how they might screw up our understanding of something somebody else is saying. So he says there's 3 parts to meaning of a word. You have, yes, the symbol, or the word. You have the object, or what he calls the referent, that to which you refer. And then you have a reference, or your thoughts about that word. All right. So you have a word, you have an object it's referring to, and you have a thought about that word and object. Do a little exercise with me. This doesn't require much thought. What do you think of when I say the word dog? Just
my dog?
Your dog personally?
Park?
A park?
Her bark?
Bark? The bark?
An animal?
An animal? Warm and fuzzy? Snuggly puppies? Anything else? No other associations with dog? I hate dogs. I love dogs. I want a corgi, whatever. Okay, well, here's the thing. When I say dog, I am talking about a 70-pound Collie Dalmatian Labrador mix who stands, his head is about here when he's sitting next to me. And he is, he's got the shape, did I say Collie Dalmatian Labrador? Yeah. He's got the shape of a Dalmatian, so he's got like that real high arched back hind portion. He has the hair of a lab, so it's short and smooth. He's got the color of a collie in that it's that brown to that black, and then he has the white diamond on the back of his head. He's got the white beard and collar, and he's got white on his tail and white on his forepaws. But he has the ears of a lab, the boxed ears, but the nose of a collie. Excuse me. So it comes out, thank you, long. And everywhere that he has white, he has brown Dalmatian spots. And his name is Corky. Now, did anybody think of that? No, nobody thought of that. Why would you think of that? Here's the thing. That's my relationship to the word dog and to the object that it inspires me to think of. You all might think of things that dogs do, or your own personal dog, or puppies, which then makes me think of puppy interviews. Has anybody ever watched the puppy interviews on YouTube? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Like
You've watched,
celebrities, and they bring them puppies?
Yeah, they bring them like 5 puppies that they're wrangling while they answer questions, right? Our thought, our reference point to a word and to a referent, to an object, is always known. So you see we have solid lines here on our triangle, solid lines on the sides. Where things get funky and messed up, according to I.A. Richards, is not because we all have different thoughts about what might be true, or what the intent might be or the meaning might be, but because the symbol and the referent have no relationship to each other. They are 100% arbitrary. Okay, have any of you ever seen this before? Nowhere? Not in column 115 or 209 or anything? Okay. So, the semantic triangle of meaning says, this is not about creating meaning. This is about where meaning fails. Now, here's the thing. I can literally draw a dog for you to picture, right? And at some point, if you have me in the future, well, first of all, God help you, why would you do that? But second of all, you might actually see a dog in a classroom with me. That might look something like this. They'll be fuzzy, might be a girl. They'll be short-bodied, a little miniature poodle, and I will not cut their hair in that crazy, stupid way that they shape their face. And yep, mine's gonna have a teddy bear cut. And I don't know what his name is gonna be yet. Probably Mango, that's a name. I don't know, I have no idea. But the next fall, I may have a dog with me, in which case I can just point to the dog. Or here, I can draw a picture of the dog. Or I could use yet more symbols to try to describe that dog, right? I could do any of those things. Imagine what would happen if I could bring a dog in. I mean, I'd be pretty clear. Hey guys, dog. All right, not a whole lot of mistaken meaning if I'm holding a dog in my hands, right? So imagine what happens with things such as love, peace, justice, things that don't have any material essence in the world, what we call abstract words. Abstract words with arbitrary reference that don't exist, which means that the meaning only can be done through using symbols and attempting to create references to it. This is where miscommunication happens. In the modernist perspective, we might stop there. We might say, hey, you know what? We've got a model. We know what the problem is. There's only a few ways to fix this. Now, somebody else had a similar thought about the fact that the relationship between a symbol and a referent is not natural. Does anybody remember who that was? I'll give you a hint. I mentioned him already today. Nope, not helping. John Locke said the first problem with language was that there's no natural relationship between a word and an object. Do you guys remember that at all? No. It was on the exam. Hoping you got it right. Anyway, he said that there were 4 problems with language. This was definitely one of them. Now, how did he say we solve that problem? He said one word: purification. Am I going to sneeze or not? No. Okay. I hate when that happens. You know, like when you have to sneeze and you can't. You're supposed to look at the sun and that's supposed to help, but it didn't help me. Also, you could think of pineapples and then you don't have to sneeze anymore. Okay. Purification. What did he mean by that? He meant taking the language down to just agreed upon words. Well, this guy, I.A. Richards, thought that is a really good idea. So he came up with 400 words in the English language that are the only ones that are necessary. If you know these 400 words, you're good. We all agree on the meaning of them. They are simple, they are easy. If you want to be a creative writer, I believe you got up to like 600 words. Some ridiculously low number of words for us to use. Now, in fairness to I.A. Richards, he was attempting to find the easiest way possible to teach people in different countries the English language. And maybe taking it down to 400 words would be an easy way to learn the language. The problem is, not everybody else speaks in 400 words only. So it never took off. But it was sort of the same embodiment of John Locke's theory of how to fix the problem with language. For I.A. Richards, he was trying to find how to fix the problem of miscommunication. Questions? Questions about your reading that you did not do? Questions about I.A. Richards? Questions about modernism? Unless I'm mistaken, and I don't have my phone to use at the moment because it's being used to record this, but if I'm not mistaken, the next person that you are reading, the next theorist, is Stephen Toulmin. Am I correct? Is that who else is on the agenda?
Not far ahead.
You haven't looked ahead? Okay. Oh, I have Burke next? When do I have Toulmin?
April 14th through 18th.
Oh, so after Burke.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is Burke. I'm not going to lie to you, Burke is heavy. And if you were here for my explanation of paper 2, then you know that Burke is one of the 4 methodologies that you can use. And I'm going to explain that methodology in detail. Are you going to get that from the book? No, but you're going to get information from the book that will help you understand what I'm saying about his 3 different methods. So, make sure that you read Burke. If you would like, I think it would be a good idea to start that now rather than later. I know that it says it's due next week, and that is when we'll talk about it. We'll be talking more about modernists next time that we meet. But for next week, reading Burke can be a little bit dense. So, good luck with that, I guess. All right, if there's no questions, then are you upset if we go? I really don't want to just keep you here and talk for no reason. No? We're good? All right, everybody, I will see you next Tuesday.